Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 15th Planning Board meeting. We have a number of things on the agenda tonight. It's a pretty heavy agenda, but we hope to move expeditiously through it. I'd like to introduce the people that are here. To my left is Rob Chisolo, who is a member. Peter Coffin is a member. My name is Lynn Merrill. I'm the chair. Robin Carter is our land use administrator. Ellie Alessio is our selectman's representative. Chris Patnode is our newest member. No, second newest. Paul Bean is our newest member. He's not here yet. And Robin Duguay will not be with us this evening. So, yeah, should work. So we have that together just to let you know how planning board meetings run. First, the applicant presents what they are going to be talking with us about in their entire presentation. When they are complete, the planning board asks for questions. We get comments, sometimes from town departments if it's a full hearing. The rest of the time from our town engineer, our town planner, our town planner, Glenn Greenwood. I'm sorry, Glenn. Forgot all about you.
I thought you were saying I could go home.
No, not yet, not yet. Robin not being here threw me. Sorry about that. Once that's complete and we've asked our questions, then the public can make comments. When you do that, you need to sit at the end of this table. Sitting there means that we can hear you on the microphones. Talk to us about whatever questions you have, what you want to say. We'll thank you for your testimony, and when everyone has spoken, we'll get back to you with answers to the questions. Then we'll close public comment, and we'll continue with our deliberations on the topic. And we'll do that with each of the 4 proposals tonight. So, the first public hearing is the Southern District YMCA Camp Lincoln. It's at 67 Ball Road, map R25, lot 3. They're in the single-family aquifer protection zone. They have a 65-acre lot, and they're requesting amendments to their site plan to include the construction of 2 new small cabins and the removal and replacement of the bathhouse with a new ADA accessible bathhouse. So, if the applicant is here, thank you. So you do need to introduce yourself. You know the routine.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Sanchez.
That means you need to be near a microphone.
Got me? Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Sanchez. I'm with the Construction Operations Group, 14 Mechanics Row, Amesbury, Massachusetts, and I'm here representing the Southern District Y and Camp Lincoln. With me tonight is David, who's our camp director, Reed, who is the Y's CEO, Julia from our architect team, and Sam from Millennium Engineering. So we're here this evening to present our project. Our goal really, we are looking to build what we're calling base camps, 2 cabins, which are 14 by 24, and they are really each group within the camp of campers. They have an assigned base camp where they go to start their day, or if it's raining out, someplace for them to gather. It's kind of a safety issue. And the 2 new buildings we're proposing, they create ADA compliance for base camps, which really does not exist currently at the Y. And then our 3rd building is a new ADA compliant bathroom. It's replacing the existing one. It's slightly larger than the old one, and really ADA compliance and cleanliness, hygiene, and less wait time for our campers when they have to go to the restroom. And it actually brings our head count down to even further below the state regulated bathroom fixture count to camper. So same amount of campers using the bathrooms, just more bathrooms to use. that's really what we got, folks.
Okay, thank you very much. Glenn, your comments?
So what I have is that this is the first public hearing for proposal to add 2 cabins and a new bathhouse to the property. There are a couple of issues that need to be addressed by the planning board. This property is located in the single-family residential zone, and as such, the proposed actions constitute an expansion of a non-conforming use. This can only be approved by a variance from the zoning board of adjustment. And herein lies the rub. We're talking about incredibly small additions to this land. It's a 2 million square foot property, and these changes are 1,100 square feet. But I looked at the procedure that the planning board and the town has used the last 2 times that we've had expansion work done at the camp. The first was in 2012, I think, and then the next was in 2017. And in both those instances, we sent them to the ZBA. I would love not to do that, but I don't see a legal way for us to not do that. If it was just a bathroom, I think we could administrative gloss the fact that they're complying with federal regulations. But the camps, we can't do that. So what I'm proposing is that the board allow them the time to go to the ZBA at the next ZBA hearing in May, and that we continue this public hearing to the backside of that, so we don't have to re-notify anyone, cause any further expense to the applicant. It sets them back because the board wouldn't be able to then act on this, which I think they should act on. I mean, there are a lot of waivers that are requested, but the waivers are legitimate waivers in light of what they're intending to do.
Madam Chair, could I ask a quick question? What was the outcome at the 2 prior ZBA meetings?
Both of them were approved.
You approved? Okay.
So it's probably just a process and a,
Well, we're talking here facilities that make it more comfortable for the kids.
They're improvements, by all
Right,
means.
100%.
They're improvements.
but the law is the law.
That's the
understand.
that's the issue. That's the issue, and I mean, it's such a small impact, but the law says that only the ZBA can allow this expansion, and so we don't have the authority to do it.
Then we should give them the time to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have time
so they can make the,
to get on the May agenda,
Yeah.
which means instead of being able to get a decision tonight, and I know that with their building schedule, they wanted this tonight, and we're telling them they can't get it until the 3rd Tuesday in May.
It's only 4 weeks away. Not too bad.
so what we need is a motion to deny the application at this point. And
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
If the bathhouse is something that is feasible for this board to act on, is there a way that we could make a decision relative to the bathrooms and send us, and I understand it's one application, we're surely trying to get this done for June 13th, and
Yeah.
by sending us the ZBA, it's unlikely or becoming very difficult to achieve the goal for the summer.
Well, the bathrooms are, to me, a health and safety issue. I mean, that should definitely be a priority, and I don't see why we couldn't bifurcate the proposal so
Because they're
that,
replacing the same building in the same spot except slightly larger.
And ADA compliant.
and I'm sure the effluent will be in a better position coming from the new facility as opposed to the current facility. Not necessarily? Okay, never mind.
There's a brand new system that was installed in 2019 to account
Oh, okay, all
for
right.
this.
So you've already made that improvement then? Yeah, okay.
Glenn, what do you think?
I mean, I can see the benefit of bifurcating. And it would allow them to start construction on the bathhouse earlier than the other two cabins.
And we certainly wouldn't do a occupancy permit until after the meeting in May, which would be
Correct.
fine.
But they would get started earlier.
It's a gray line.
It just,
What is the difference in the size of the two structures?
it's the same width and it's about 20 feet longer because of the increased stall count and ADA. All three of these structures are well within setbacks, out of
Well, they
wetlands.
absolutely are. They are so tucked away central to this facility. I mean, the expansion of use created by the cabins is because it's two additional cabins that didn't exist before. This is an expansion in the size, but not an expansion of the use.
Yep.
And it's actually improving the use of the structure that's there now and becoming more compliant with federal statute. So, I mean, I think that the board can make a reasonable decision that that doesn't create an expansion of use because there isn't a new use going on there.
Right.
The two cabins present a new use, even though it's not a change in use, it's an expansion of use. And so the ZBA has to be the one to authorize that. But this is not an expansion of use. And the intensity is so minimal, it doesn't constitute even a change in the intensity of the use that's on site. It's literally 2 million square feet, and we're increasing with the cabins by 1,174.
I think we really should treat them as two issues, go forward with the bathhouse, and then, ask the applicant to go right to the ZBA for the two buildings and come back to us in May, in which case you can already be well on your way with the bathhouses and ready for your season.
In which case, I would ask that the board consider the waivers then, so that they could invoke jurisdiction on the bathroom portion of
Okay.
the plan.
Okay,
And approve the waivers that are requested so that the plan can be considered complete for invoking jurisdiction.
okay,
And the minutes will have to be very clear, and Robin's all over this, that what we're talking about would be an approval only for the bathroom
okay,
and its construction. And that that ZBA action would still be required for the two cabins.
okay. I'm good with that.
And I just have a question. By the way, I am recusing myself from the ZBA on this because we've already started doing this, but I did have the same thoughts you did, and I looked up the whole expansion of use versus expansion, non-conforming use. And I agree with you that the bathrooms were not an issue at all.
They're really not.
If it had only been the bathrooms, I would have suggested that it would not require ZBA. And the only expansion, and I looked up in the case laws on this, and it's absolutely required, as you said, that we go to the ZBA for that. But my question is it procedurally legal for us to bifurcate an application like this?
Yeah,
Do partial approval?
if we have a statement from the applicant asking for approval of one section of it,
Yeah, that would
and
be,
we have a plan that shows that section, and we deal with the application for that section,
Right,
I think that the board is within its right to do that.
okay, good, that was my only question on that.
And the minutes will be very clear why we're doing that. Because there is an
Yeah.
element to this plan that requires that the ZBA provide the actual authority for it, and the planning board can't act on that.
And what we're talking about is expansion of use.
Correct.
Not expansion of the physical size.
Correct, correct.
And ironically, one of the legal criteria that the ZBA has to look at in approving a expansion of a non-conforming use is whether it will promote the purpose of reducing the non-conforming uses to conformity as quickly as possible, and that's not the desired outcome. And I think we should make a point of saying in the referral that it's the opinion of the planning board that Camp Lincoln is a pre-existing non-conforming use that we feel follows the spirit and of the master plan and has no intention of phasing it out because it's non-conforming, that it should continue to exist in Kingston as a valuable part of our landscape, so that that will allay any concerns about that particular criterion.
Any other comments from the board?
Can't call them sheds, right?
Can't call them sheds.
We
Nice try.
absolutely can call them sheds.
This is residential.
Good try.
Well, that was a Hail Mary.
Right?
What if we built sheds and then converted them to,
There's different rules and regs for sheds. If there's no further comment from the board, I'll open public comment. Is there any comment from the public? If there is, you need to come and sit over here or go to the microphone and tell us your name and address, and then make your comment. Right, on just Camp Lincoln. Okay. Seeing no public comment, we will close public comment and go back to board discussion. Anything you'd like to add? All right.
any more questions on
You
this?
ready?
So what should we do first?
Waivers first?
Wait.
No, you should invoke jurisdiction on
Invoke-
the plan for consideration of the bathroom.
Okay,
So moved.
okay.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, that's the first step.
Then consideration of the waivers.
Are the waivers that we need for the bathroom?
Right, and well, they're the waivers for the entire plan. So the same waivers apply as far as what information they're not showing that our regulations require. And it's a litany of them, and I would suggest that you just, I never tell you to do them all as a group, but this is a litany of them. And I would suggest that you do them as a group, saying the waivers requested as a part of their letter of, I think it's.
A letter of March 14th.
On March 14th, for waivers to allow the board to consider invoking jurisdiction on the plan.
Okay. So,
Do you need a motion to that?
we need a motion, and I'll read the waivers after the motion.
Okay, I move that we grant the waivers as requested on the letter dated March 14th from the Millennium Engineering
For the bath.
for the bathrooms. It's really the whole property, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, the waivers apply to the fact that these are the things required
Okay.
of the standard site plan.
so we don't need to, okay. We have a
So
second?
before we do, should we list them in the?
We need a second.
Okay,
I think she's going to.
okay, I'll second.
All
Yeah,
right, and then so the waivers are, given the scope of the 904.4 mandatory preliminary review, given the scope of the project, we're requesting a waiver from the mandatory preliminary review. 904.5.G.8 requires topographical plans, limited topography is provided around the areas of proposed work, however, no topography is shown for the remainder of the site. 504.5.G.9 requires all easements and rights of way to be shown. Given the overall size of the parcel and the limited amount of work proposed, a waiver is being requested. 504.5.G.16 requires snow storage areas to be shown on the plan. No new drives or access ways are proposed under this application, and therefore no new snow storage areas are required. 904.5.G.17 noise ordinance compliance. The proposed site plan does not change the current use of the property. 904.5.G.18 dust control. The proposed project will involve little to no earth disturbance, and therefore there would be no need to provide dust control. 904.5.G.19 storage facility for liquids and any hazardous materials. There will be no storage of liquids or hazardous materials as part of this project. 904.5.G.20 accessibility to all sections of the site at all times by emergency service vehicles. The proposed project does not change any of the access to or within the site. 904.5.G.21 existing and proposed impervious areas and percentage of lot coverage. The total impervious area added as part of this submittal is 1,174 square feet. The site is 60.9 acres. 904.5.G.22. The site plan will include a detailed drainage scheme in accordance with Article 908 Stormwater Management. Given the very small increase in impervious area completely from roof runoff, we are requesting a waiver from providing stormwater plans and calculations. 904.5.G.23, plans showing natural features. Given the scope of the project and that the additional structures are located to or replacing existing structures on a very small portion of the site, we are requesting a waiver to show all natural features on the site. 904.5.G.26, locations of all off-street parking and loading zones. Given the scale of the project, we're requesting a waiver from this section. 904.5.G.27, location of access ways. All existing access ways are not proposed to be changed, and given the scale of the project will not increase the use of the property, we're requesting a waiver from this section. 904.5.G.28, size and proposed location of water supply and sewage facilities. The project involves the replacement of the existing bathhouse with a new ADA accessible bathhouse that will be connected to the existing water and sewer facilities. There are no proposed changes to the demand of the facility. 904.5.G.29, type and location of solid waste disposal facilities. There are no proposed changes to the solid waste facilities for the property. 904.5.G.36, surveyed property lines. Given the size of the parcel and the distance from the property line to the proposed work, a waiver is requested to provide surveyed property lines.
Can we just say for the reasons, I know we have to take a vote, but the reasons cited in the letter of March 14th would be sufficient for the findings of fact to grant the waivers.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting the waivers?
Aye.
It's unanimous. And now we need a motion. Ready for a motion to accept jurisdiction? No, we accepted jurisdiction.
No, we accepted jurisdiction.
So it's a motion to
Making a motion to
approve the
bathroom.
bathhouse portion of the project.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? And now we need a motion to reject the two
Right, to deny the
buildings.
camps and send it to the ZBA.
Yep. Your motion?
Sure. I move that we deny the request for the two additional buildings on the property that would require action by the zoning board adjustment.
Second?
I'll second that with the addition that it's the sense of the planning board that the Camp Lincoln should not be forced to come in conformity at any time.
Should not.
It's the sense of the planning board that the Camp Lincoln should not be forced into coming into conformity with a residential zone at any time. Will continue to exist as a day camp.
Okay. Got that all, Robin? Okay. Ready for the vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then finally, you need to continue the public hearing.
Exactly. Motion to continue the public hearing to May 15th, I believe it is? No, May 20th.
So move. Do we need any, we shouldn't have any more plans or anything else, so that we don't have a deadline for the due date,
No,
so,
there's no new plans.
yeah. Okay.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
So if anybody is here for that particular plan, you will not be re-noticed for the next meeting. It will be on May 20th. So one note to everyone in the audience, there probably will be more involvement on the next 3 plans. And knowing that, there are extra sets of plans at the back if you'd like to look at them more closely at any time. All right, so the next hearing is the Town of Kingston Community Library. Property owner, Town of Kingston, 2 Library Lane, map R33, lot 21-2. It's in the rural residential aquifer zone. Land type exempt municipal. The lot size is 3.43 acres. And the purpose of this meeting is to provide the planning board and abutters an opportunity to review and comment on the proposed improvements associated with the development of an outdoor community center on the library property. So, if you'd come forward, please, and give us your name and address, and we'll begin.
My name is Jeff Highland. I'm a landscape architect with Ironwood Design Group out of Exeter. And I'm here representing are here as well, and they may want to say something as we go.
Can you get a little closer to the mic? Thank you. You can move it. Yeah, you can move it. You can. It's also you can take it right out if you want to.
We actually can't take it right out and hold it.
I think this is fine, actually, just so I can flip. That's all right. So hopefully you have all had an opportunity to look at the plans. The plans right now for the library are probably about 75% complete. The library wants to take them a little bit further so that they can generate or go out and secure grant funding for a variety of the elements on here. So we're not taking it to full 100% at this time. Probably in another year or so, when the project actually moves forward with grant funding, we will advance it to 100% and put it out to public bid. That's the plan today. What I'm showing you right here is a color rendered plan. It makes it a little easier to kind of identify a few things. So this is not showing the entire site. The entire library site is close to 3.5 acres. I think the actual number is something like 3.43 acres. This is the back end of the library, which you're seeing right here. And I think Melissa, were you able to get it up on the screen? Okay. So at some point, they're hopefully going to get it up on the screen, so we'll just have to, hopefully you can all see this okay. So this is the back end of the library, if you're familiar with the library. Today, you enter in right here. This is Library Drive here. This is kind of the back parking lot at the back of the building, and this is kind of the main parking lot here where you come in and enter. The entrance to the library is generally over here. So what we're looking at is the whole area behind the library. Currently, it's primarily a lawn area with woods behind. There is a small garage that exists right back here, and there's a solar panel as well, just to kind of get you all oriented. There is an abutting structure that's right over here. It's a single-story garage structure, and that's on an adjacent parcel of land. What's being proposed is an expansion of the parking lot, and that extends kind of down the side on basically the north side of the property. It adds, I believe, about 20 parking spots or so. We're going to make this all porous pavement, so this will be fully infiltrated for stormwater management. We also have a variety of rain gardens for stormwater management as well. So the intent is to have 100% of all the stormwater generated from this to be infiltrated on site. So there is currently a pipe that outlets right over in this area. There will be no net increase on the outfall from that pipe, even with all these improvements. Another main feature of the outdoor community center is a water lab feature, a climbing structure, then there's an amphitheater over in this area, and a small pavilion structure. And then over in this area, there are some adult senior exercise pieces of equipment. And all of these elements that I've just mentioned are all based on a community survey that was done several years ago. So that is really the driving factor on all of this design is that community survey that was done. There are some existing trails out in the woods. We are adding a section of trail right here to create a little bit larger loop that goes out and explores further out into the woods. And then along that both existing trail, which is a smaller loop, and the larger loop, we are planning on adding a few elements within the woods, a couple play and basically nature-based play elements. And to show you kind of what these things are, we do have a couple detail sheets that were not included in your packet. And those do show some of these pieces of equipment that I just mentioned. So the primary play structure is this structure right here. It's made by a company called Gorick, and it is primarily an all wood and rope structure. Obviously, there are mechanical fasteners associated with it. It is all fabricated from black locust, which is a sustainable native hardwood, decay-resistant product. It'll have very low maintenance demand over its life expectancy. The water lab that I mentioned, this feature right here, and again, these are a little small, I apologize for that. This is also a Gorick product. It's all stainless steel. And what it does is it allows kids to kind of explore water and to kind of manipulate the flow of water. It's a series of tables and kind of sluices that have little dams in them and other ways of manipulating. So it's kind of a learning component as well as kind of an imaginary component. There is a water hand pump, so it's all manual. So the amount of energy you put into pumping the water is directly related to how much water comes out of it. There will be a cistern that feeds the water from this. So the pump will pull right out of the cistern that's being put in the ground. Some of the other smaller, those are kind of the main big, I guess, elements within the landscape or the playscape. We also have a variety of other little elements. We have some kind of nature-based insect spring rider kind of pieces of equipment. We have a nest swing, and again, this is all fabricated from Robinia, the black locust. There's a balance beam element. These elements from here down are actually all on that woodland trail. So you can kind of picture, along that trail, there will be these different elements that you arrive on as you walk down the trail. And then I mentioned the senior exercise component, and that was a very high-ranking element on the community survey. Residents of Kingston really wanted to see something more than just kind of kids' play equipment, kids' outdoor opportunities. They wanted something for seniors and adults out in this facility. So we have a variety of senior exercise equipment pieces, and they are specifically designed and fabricated with seniors in mind for exercise. There are some balance beam elements. The balance beams have rails on both sides that you can hold onto as you're using the balance beam. They have some elements that basically wind like this. There are some other elements like this for creating kind of dexterity. So they require you to move a ring kind of down this steel kind of circuitous piece of metal. This is a kind of an air walker, so you actually stand on it and you do a walking movement. This is a pedal element where you sit on this little bench and you can either use your hands or your feet to run the pedal. This right here is a kind of an uneven step platform that kind of teeters a little bit. It does have a grab bar on it to kind of keep you secure. And then this one right here is a spring-mounted kind of seat, also with a handrail. These are all manufactured by a company called Lapset. And this is one of kind of their specialties, is doing senior exercise equipment. All right, so I could go into more detail if you'd like. I can take questions, whatever you'd like to do. It's totally up to you. I can definitely go into more detail on elements if you'd like.
Any comments from the planning board? Glenn?
And there are some images up here. I think these were all in your packet, so hopefully you've had a chance to see this. But these are some of the illustrations that were prepared, kind of give you a little bit better idea of what I've been talking about.
I was having the worst time trying to translate what that amphitheater looked like.
Oh, yeah?
From the page. That was really helpful.
Well, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, my comments are that this is design review, so this is a non-binding discussion with the applicant and planning board. In this instance, the applicant is a municipal entity, not required to apply for or receive planning board.
Is your mic on? No, Glenn, mic.
The project is a very ambitious outdoor community center featuring, among other things, an amphitheater, walking trails, exercise equipment, expanded parking, extensive landscaping, and outdoor lighting. And the following are my comments upon looking at this plan. And I gotta say, the plan is really, you said you're at 70% or so. It's a really detailed plan that a lot of thought has gone into this. My first comment is that there is a wetland area located in the northwest corner of the site, and efforts should be taken to ensure that this resource is not harmed by the proposed activity. I believe that they are accomplishing that. Have efforts been made to ensure the expanded parking area will not damage the wetland, and any winter snow storage you should find a way to not just do what seems like the natural thing, which would be to push it off the parking lot closer to the wetland. So that's something I hope you guys consider. Mm-hmm. All exterior lighting should be dark sky compliant. I would imagine with the thought that's gone into this, that isn't new news to you folks, or not something that you don't already desire to do. So I just wanted to say it out loud. And then on the south side of the property, there's a proposed stage and a balance beam feature, and they're actually really close to the property line.
So these right here?
Yeah, and if there's any way that you could shift them just a little bit more away from that property boundary, just to ensure as much separation as possible.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's really no particular reason why it's on that side. So
That's what I was
We could
wondering.
easily shift it to the other side, yeah.
If it got shifted,
Yeah.
that would be terrific. And honestly, a ton of work has gone into these. It's really clear, so. The committee, or whoever's doing it, should be commended.
Well, it's all the library trustees, because they did a lot of upfront work defining
Good
what the
job, library
program
trustees.
was. Yep.
Well, that's our library director.
I'm the library director, yes. Just to respond to the lighting question, I didn't go into a ton of detail. There is a lot of detail here. So the lighting, we're approaching it in kind of 3 different tiers of lighting. We have kind of regular parking lot lighting. That will likely go on, at dusk, probably turn off somewhere around 9 o'clock, something like that. It's not going to be on all night. We only anticipate having one light kind of right in the center of the property being on probably dusk to dawn, and that would just be for kind of like overall safety and security of the entire site. We also have some bollard lighting that's directly adjacent to some of the primary pedestrian walkways. Those will all probably only be turned on for special events. There's also some downlighting in the pavilion building itself. Again, that will probably be only turned on when there's actually an event after dark out there. Few details still to work out, and that's why we're only at 75%.
Quick question on bollard lighting, is that low, like 2 foot, like a real bollard?
Correct,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yep.
I do have to say, that one feature that they're having for the seniors or adults, that movable, I have a couple of aunts who are particularly nasty, and I would send them. But for everyone else, that seems like a liability issue to me. So
It's
more
designed.
power to you, but that's just calling out to send people you don't like
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to design it personally, so that's why we rely on these companies that actually put a lot of effort into design of these things. Yeah.
It seems like an ankle
Yeah.
problem, but.
So I just have a couple comments, nothing really important. I can see this becoming very, very, very popular. I think it's great. I only counted an additional 20 parking spaces. I could be off. It's hard to tell in our copy exactly how many there are. It doesn't matter. But if this is so popular, will there be enough parking? How have you done the parking calculation, I guess, is what I'm more interested in.
So we've done it based on kind of like national standards for facilities like this.
Okay.
If it is extremely popular, so the library trustees, and maybe they would want to speak a little bit more to this, they weren't envisioning it as a typical municipal park. It's really geared more towards the library to it's more imaginative for kids. It's really to support programming that they want to do within the library. But again, it is open to the public, so there's nothing controlling it, saying that you can't use it anytime during the day. So there is a potential, yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking more of amphitheater
Yeah.
use, that's all. It might require more parking, that's all. I was just curious as to, but obviously if you're using the national standards.
We are kind of using general standards for facilities like this. It's based on square footage. So square footage of amphitheater space, it generates, I think it's like, 1 car for every 500 square feet or something like that. I don't know offhand, but.
And I also noticed that there's a porta potty, not bathroom facilities.
Correct. There are bathrooms in the library, but for this, we actually discussed this a lot during the kind of the design process, and porta-johns seem to be the preferred option. I know that the trustees and the library director did reach out to Public Works director, fire department, the fire chief, police chief, all the kind of town departments. They didn't have a concern with an outdoor porta john.
I was just thinking more of Envision Kingston too, where they were hoping the fire station would have public bathrooms for people on the common. So that's the only reason I thought of it. Okay.
It's a pretty challenging element to add here, because you think that there's a fair amount of space out here, but when you start adding all these elements, it gets a little tight.
And they make really nice porta potties now.
Well, there you go.
They do.
Yeah.
Then perhaps Melissa would chime in on the parking, because I know it's something that they consider, and I have a feeling it has a lot to do with timing of events, because that's when the parking for the library fills up as, well, bone crushers or whatever they call it in the morning and things like that. So I would imagine they would schedule pavilion events not to coincide with indoor events.
Absolutely, and I do know that the library is, they have a good relationship with the abutter to the north, who has a very large parking lot that isn't very heavily used. And I don't want to, create these scenarios, but there is a lot of parking close by that I think could lead to kind of a shared parking use.
Yeah, and they've been very generous on weekends for events that the library is allowing overflow parking. Elsa's nodding her head.
But that building was fully leased, so they're going to have a lot more employees there now,
Okay.
starting in June. Okay, any other comments? Great plan.
Would they be able to use the items outside hours? Can the public show up and start using the facility?
So Robin's question was, can the public just show up and use the items outside after library hours, before and after?
Yes, it's a public it's a public, facility, so it will not be fenced off or locked or anything like that. We will have the, I think these are some little details that need to be worked out. For example, the pump for the water lab, that can be locked. Now, whether the library chooses to lock it, I think that's kind of up to them, but they may want to do that. Obviously the porta-johns can be locked. Certain things could be locked, but for the most part, other things are there for people to use. So, and I think all the trustees are very supportive of this being a facility open for everyone to use. Sure. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm the library director, Melissa Bannon. I did speak with all of the department heads who could be impacted by this, including the highway department, the police, the fire department, as Jeff said. They gave us ideas for how to improve this with the intention of this being open even when we're not open. So the police are prepared to help keep it secure. The fire department made recommendations for safety. The highway department is prepared to plow. So all of that is the intention to make this a really great space for the library to run programs, but it is also available to the public. It's very different from the other playgrounds and open areas we have in town. It's a planned area where people can read and exercise and contemplate. We do have a meditation garden going in. I don't know if that was mentioned. But it is, yes, going to be open to people at all times to enjoy.
Melissa, you and the trustees have done a fabulous job in creating something that you had envisioned, maybe 5 years ago, and started talking to us about the outdoor activities that could be done. I think you've done a fabulous job. I'm not going to ask you how much yet, because that's going to be the $64,000 question, but the concept is outstanding. Congratulations on a job well done.
Did you ask for general public comment?
Not yet, but I will. No more comment from the planning board, so we'll open it to the public. Anyone from the public wish to make a comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll close public comment. Well, thank you very much. It's a terrific project, a nice asset for our town, and
Definitely.
let's get the money raised.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our third hearing of the evening is Bluestone Investment Group LLC, 4 Marshall Road, tax map R33, lot 21. It's in the rural residential aquifer zone. In fact, just one property between this and the library. The lot size is 17.93 acres. This is a design review, and what we do with design review is the applicant comes forward with an idea of what they're thinking of doing. They don't have to have final plans, although these are very complete. Just to get some feedback from the board, feedback from the public as to what you're thinking, so they can come back to us with an application that will be a little bit more complete and address any concerns that anyone may have. The purpose of this review is to receive planning board comments and input, and this will be an age-restricted over 55 market rate project consisting of single-family housing with a building separation of less than 25 feet. Previous to this, the planning board had approved an over 55 project with townhouse-style condominiums that were attached, and the applicant has chosen to change the design and come back with something a little bit different. So, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Barry Geyer. I'm with Jones and Beach Engineers here for the applicant. Also with me tonight is Alex Monasterio with Gove Realty Group. She's with the development group. We're here tonight requesting the board's input on our project. It's at 4 Marshall Road, map 33, lot 21. Contains 17.9 acres in the rural residential zone. As you indicated, this property was approved for a market rate, age-restricted project back in 2019, 2020, and I think some of you were on the boards at that time. At that time, we did obtain all the required permits and approvals. The original approval was for, which is what I have on the board for you, it was for 32 units in 8 buildings, so that was 8 fourplex townhouses. Access to Marshall Road via large cul-de-sac. Water system was to be a community water system, and septic via a series of shared septic fields. The project was permitted under Article 208, Section 208.5 of the zoning regs, which permits a density of 2 units per acre of upland. The property does contain 16.9 acres, which results in allowable units of 33 allowable units. Unfortunately, the owner was hit with some unforeseen and uncontrollable circumstances at that time, prevented him from constructing the project. We are now back and to complete the permitting process and start construction. So we're here tonight to review a new market rate age-restricted project. The intent is to construct 25 single-family homes on the same proposed roadway. The infrastructure really doesn't change all that much. Water will still be via community water system. The intent is to have a septic system for each of the homes. In order to achieve the 25 single-family homes, we are requesting that the building's spacing be reduced from the required 40 at this point to 25, which is the same spacing as allowed in the C1 district. We did speak with the fire chief about this, and he didn't have any issues with it at this time. I would like to turn it over to Alex, and she can go through the whys and some examples of prior projects. You want me to hand those out?
Yeah, do you guys mind passing? Are you adept at passing? Wonderful, thank you so much. We have some extras if there's people in the community that want to take it. Oh, right there. Yeah, so when we were taking a look at getting the approvals redone for this project, thinking hard about if we wanted to come back with the same fourplex design or a different type of design, we took feedback that we've gotten from other similar communities that we've built, and we know that from those communities that New Hampshire residents really prefer to live in a single-family option. The attached housing option is viable. We get people who buy them primarily from Mass and Connecticut and New Jersey, and some people from New Hampshire, but the feedback that we've received in similar communities is that New Hampshire residents in this area prefer to live in a single-family detached home. And it works really well in this type of community because when we go to the 25-foot separation, they still have good side yards. The condo association takes care of all the maintenance, and it allows them to have that independence of living in a single-family home, but paired with a tight-knit 55-plus community. So it lives really well for them. We knew that in order to go to the single-family detached home, we'd have to lose some units, but we wanted a project that flowed well and felt like a good community, and so that's what you see before you. We've really thought critically about this design to try and make it a product that will fit in well. We wanted to come in before you tonight just to get your feedback, public feedback on this option versus the fourplex option. We do know that we'll have to go to the zoning board to get a variance for the unit separation, which we're prepared to do. But we wanted to stop here first and get feedback from you all to see if this felt like a good fit for this parcel.
We do have a number of detached condominium projects in town,
Yeah, familiar with them.
one of which is adjacent to this property.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, and so that packet that you have in front of you just demonstrates the builder, Stone Arch, has done a number of different communities in this area that have 25-foot unit separation. So you can see some examples of how those live and what they feel like in reality when they're built on site. Sort of demonstrates, it's hard to tell on a gray and white and black plan what it's going to feel like, and I think that the drone photos do more justice to how those live.
Okay. Glenn?
You're moving way too quick for me tonight. Barry, did I hear you say that the intention is that there are going to be individual septic systems for each of the houses?
We're currently looking, that's the intent.
Because when I look at these pictures, I don't see any candy canes, which means I have to think all of these are on some sort of municipal or community systems.
I think some of those
I'm not
pictures
seeing
are,
any venting
yeah.
on here.
Yeah, no, we have really good soils there. We are looking at that. Obviously, when we did the prior approval, we had to get the conditional use permit for the aquifer district, which required us to get the feasibility study completed for that. This will have fewer units, so it wouldn't, hopefully that would still hold water.
And we have successfully been able to do individual septics in communities with 25-foot unit separation. Takes some master planning from Barry, but we are able to do it.
All right, thank you for that. All right, so I have that this is a design review, and you've already gone over what that means. So I have that there is an approved, albeit lapsed age restricted housing development on the subject parcel that differs significantly from this proposal. Previously, the units were attached multi-unit structures, and this new proposal is for detached single family with very little separation between units. The proposed separation would require ZBA relief. Everything I'm saying here has already been said. In addition, 8 units are displayed as being on a driveway configuration. And I only mention this because for all the other units, even though they're close on the side yards, when you look out the front window, you're looking at a lot of space and a lot of separation because you're looking toward a road and then across a wide cul-de-sac to houses set back again very far from the road. And then you have this area of units, 8 of them, where 6 of them are on these driveways. And so there's you have some separation if you're looking out your back windows. But when you're looking out your front windows, you're very close to looking right in your neighbor's front windows. You clearly can pretty much shake hands through your side windows. So I'm really concerned about that. I don't know if the board is. I think that they need separation because it's a driveway. We don't have a setback like we do for the right of way. So it's just damned ugly to me, but I'm not going to live there because I'm sure that they'll be really expensive anyway, and so I'm going to stay in Kensington. But that element of it does concern me. In addition to that, unit 17 and 18, I think because of trying to make sure your clearances around and whatnot, I think they're actually closer than the 25 feet, but I know that your design review internally will will catch that kind of thing. So this is really different, but I have to say, I'm not surprised that they're going this route, because in my experience in all my other towns, this is the development pattern that seems to be favored here in New Hampshire. I mean, it just is. So I completely understand the desire to look away from how it was designed before to do this, because I think this is going to attract many more potential buyers than the other design.
Well, the other design was confusing, and it was townhouse style for over 55, 30 steps. Okay, any comments from the board?
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed when you said that you were thinking that you were going to need ZBA approval for separation, we did two things. One, we have changed the separation requirements, but the other thing is that this is done under an innovative use ordinance under the RSA 674-21, and the planning board, according to the lawyers that gave the law conference this past spring, said that is not something that you can take to the ZBA. The planning board has total authority on that, and I think that's something that we should check with our attorney to see if things like the separation or whatever, whether that in fact is supposed to go to the ZBA. The attorneys at the law conference said that it can only be appealed, for example, if you appeal something that's in an innovative zoning ordinance, can only go to Superior Court and bypassing the ZBA. So I think that's something we ought to find out before we start sending people to the ZBA, when in fact...
Shame on me for not bringing my RSA book, but I'm going to go down and get my RSA.
Oh, you're going.
I'll write that.
Okay.
So I just want to say that we would obviously look into that with the attorneys for the applicant as well, just to ensure, but I haven't run into that either yet.
Okay, yeah. It was kind of a surprise when they talked about it, and
Was that another means to take away control from the local area?
no, that wasn't the state. No, this isn't new. This is, and in fact, in our ordinance, we even included the wording in 208.8. It says the planning board. The planning board shall maintain and exercise the authority to approve or disapprove all proposed market rate age-restricted housing developments. The planning board shall act reasonably in exercising its discretionary authority to issue a conditional use permit, and shall take into consideration such factors, for example, as the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Kingston, the aesthetic impact on immediately surrounding areas, whether the design is adequate to meet the unique needs of aging residents, and whether the proposed development complies with the requirements of the applicable requirements of the zoning ordinance and subdivision and site plan regulations. So in our own ordinance, and that probably came from the from 674, the state law, but in our 208.1, it says, in accordance with RSA 674-21, this ordinance is adopted to permit the establishment of constructed affordable rate and market rate age-restricted housing in Kingston. And consistent with the provisions of 674-21, which is the innovative use ordinance for the, not ordinance, law for the state. The ordinance provides for a use incentive that permits increased densities and development flexibility. So, having said all that, looks like Glenn's got his book out.
I think I'm going to completely disagree with you, but I'm going to look first.
Right. Well, that's why I would suggest before we make any assumptions that we consult with either the NHMA lawyers or our town council. What's that? 67421.
Does it need to be age restricted?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're under the age restricted regulation, which is Article 208.
Yeah, it's, and it's just in that particular R33 zone, and it really only applies to two properties, which is the King's Landing property and this property as being big enough to qualify.
Because nowadays, we're looking for density, we're looking for growth. Love to see single families, non-age restricted,
Right.
with that kind of density.
Unfortunately, we haven't written those yet.
You know, it's against a lot of what we got on the books already, but
I think if you wait a few minutes for your fourth application, you might get your wish answered.
I have never interpreted it that way, Peter, but it definitely does say that we're referring to RSA 674.21. So I think it is definitely a question we want to submit to council in the interim, which is why we do design review.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
So was the,
So I may be wrong, which I don't want to do, but maybe.
was your interpretation that the board had jurisdiction over that separation?
Yes, in accordance with the guidelines, and Glenn may remember, I think we reduced the separation requirements down to 20 feet, didn't we? 25. We did 25, okay. So
That works.
so that, yeah,
It works. We changed our zoning ordinance in
We
that.
reduced it to 40.
You went to 40 from 60.
oh, for age restricted.
Okay.
25 was,
That is a zoning ordinance predicated by the town code, not by the planning board's decision making.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's the issue that I would want to pose to council.
So for those of you in the public, just so you know what it is we're talking about, they'd like to put the units 25 feet apart. Our zoning ordinance requires 40. And we're trying to determine, there's a new interpretation of state law which says that voting on that would be from the planning board versus what we've always done, where it's gone to the zoning board of adjustment for relief for that distance. So we're just trying to determine who has the jurisdiction over this,
Right.
and we're going to ask our town council to let us know. Since no decisions are made tonight,
Right.
it's just a matter of getting input from them to know whether or not there would be a reduction in the distance. Who will determine whether or not, who would take the vote, who has the jurisdiction to determine whether or not they can reduce from 40 to 25. Okay. Any other planning board comment?
Oh, and the upland area of 16.9 or whatever.
Correct.
Was that based on the original wetland surveys that were done for the first
Correct.
time around? So yeah, that's all been signed off by wetland scientists on the original plans.
It was on the original, yes,
Okay, yeah.
absolutely.
So that's a good firm number then, okay.
The audience could still be a little quiet because we're having trouble hearing. Things echo around this room horribly, so people are having trouble sitting at the table and hearing what's going on. So if you could just tone it down a little bit, that would be helpful. Okay.
Do we want to take this opportunity to formally tell me I can talk to council about this issue?
Yes, you may talk to council.
Please do.
Are there any other issues that we have? If not, we'll open it for public comment. Is there anyone from the public that has any comments they'd like to make about this particular proposal? Yes, sir. You need to go to the microphone, introduce yourself, and tell us where you live.
Good evening. My name is Bob Malley. I'm the Facilities Director for King's Landing. I have a couple of questions for you. My main concern here is the 25-foot. This is extremely close. I know that the town of Brentwood allows 30 feet, but every house has to have a fire suppression system in it. Are you going to put fire suppression systems in these buildings?
Well, why don't we have, listen to all the concerns and then we'll answer everything together. Anything else?
Yes, the next question is, on your plan, you're showing a well with a 175-foot radius and a pump house. Are you planning to do that well and that pump house?
Okay, anything else?
If they are going to use it, that's fine. If they're not going to use it, I want to know if they're going to come into King's Landing and tap our water supply.
No, no.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Thank you, sir, for your comment. And seeing no other public comment, we will close public comment. Alex?
You wanted to address that first question that you had?
We'll have Alex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we did meet with the fire chief and they were gracious to sit down with Barry and I and have a meeting and look at the plan. And so what was described by them to be their ideal situation is that we do a fiberglass cistern and not sprinkler pumps. And so that would be our intent moving forward based on their recommendations. And our intent is to install that well.
Yeah, that well in that location was approved with the pump house. Everything was signed off prior, so we're just gonna go back in with the same, and hopefully, I think, actually, our water approval may not have expired quite yet.
And since you're reducing the units, DES will correct.
Anything else from the board?
Oh, I did, what's the size, the floor area of the units?
We're showing boxes that are primarily 40 feet wide by 60 feet deep. There are a few units that are turned sideways that are, I believe, 50 by, or 45 by 55. They're a slightly different size, but they will primarily be, 1,800 to 2,200 square foot homes.
Okay, because our ordinance does have a maximum on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you have a
2,400.
maximum, so we'll comply with that.
Right. And a minimum, but I wasn't worried about the 600 square feet.
Any other comments from the board? Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for your time.
Going as a general, what's that? Yeah. We'll have to make sure they don't start conversations out there. I do have I had a question about that whole thing that the attorneys had said. I think it may be that the initial application for relief from zoning ordinances may have to go to the ZBA, but then appeals are
Peter, I want you to just wait until the vote goes.
yeah.
Could everyone
all King's Landing. Glenn, the point I was making about that was that there may be, when you talk to the attorney, there are two considerations. One is the initial application may need relief from ordinances because ordinances go to ZBA, whereas appeals of the planning board's decisions would go directly to Superior Court. And that wasn't something I didn't think to ask the attorneys then. Yeah, and I was talking to Jen about another, Jen down at the RPC, about something else, and she mentioned that too, that whole thing about innovative zoning ordinances not going to ZBAs. Yeah.
And our fourth and last public hearing for the evening is One Home Builders LLC, Calanton Real Estate Trust. They're at 57 Depot Road. It's map R28, lot 1. It's in the rural residential aquifer zone. The lot size is 78 acres. And the purpose of this application is to review a proposal for a residential development on the parcel previously used as a golf course at Kingston Fairways located on Route 107. And again, this is a design review. They're just here to present things, get some comments from everybody, and gather that information together for when they come forward with their final presentation. Okay. You're on.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Christian Smith, engineer with Beals Associates. Frank Catapano from One Home Builders is with us here in the audience tonight. And so our whole purpose for coming before you tonight was to have a discussion about kind of a vision that Frank has for the property. So what we have done is essentially laid out a concept that utilizes your 55 plus age restricted zoning density. But the proposal would be not to have an age restriction. So what's going to drive the actual density at the end of the day, because we obviously don't have a site-specific soils map available for that property yet, is in our opinion going to be the state lot loading by soil type based on septic flow. But anyway, we just wanted to kind of run this up the flagpole with you folks. We understand there are a few ways that we could go about this. If there's a preferred method, to this board, we'd love to hear your opinion. We'd love to hear, just if this is something that you think the board could get behind and support. And, essentially, all of the land that is not encumbered by the development area, so it would be the lighter green on the plan, would be contemplated for open space. Frank has indicated he would be very interested in constructing an actual active recreation park that could possibly include basketball courts, that kind of thing, for the residents to use. He has no issue with going up to 10% of these units being actually definably affordable. The whole intent for this would be to wind up with reasonably priced housing in a single or duplex family condominium unit. And again, he would have no issue utilizing up to 10% of whatever the stock that comes that we figure out works here if we can get through the zoning hurdles, because we are very aware that there is no zoning in town that would facilitate what it is he wants to do. So it could go a couple of different ways. We could go before the zoning board of adjustment and seek variances for density and setbacks and things of that nature. I guess the other opportunity would be to discuss with this board and the other boards in town a potential for a zoning amendment, or perhaps something like a contract zone, which basically just facilitates the municipality to try a zoning ordinance on a particular piece of parcel, on a particular piece of property, and see how it goes, how the town likes it or doesn't like it, and then you wouldn't be locked into other properties being available for that type of development. So in any event, what Glenn's letter laid it out pretty concisely. What we have shown here is 66 total units, with a small proportion of them being the duplexes, mostly single-family detached. And this was laid out under the former age-restricted housing kind of development verbiage. So these homes, all the buildings are in this layout, are proposed at 60 feet apart minimum. Some are much more than that, but we do have areas, for septic systems, a couple of public water supply wells We've cited some areas for potential drainage, mitigation, and treatment. And you can see the two little blue areas are existing ponds left over from the golf course itself. So instead of boring you with my drivel, I will turn it over to the board and address any questions, address comments that you folks might have on this type of proposal.
Thanks. Glenn?
Oh, I just think there's way too many units, but he's described what it is. Man, you're trying to bring me main zoning here? We don't do that contract zoning here.
I understand that.
But that's called spot zoning in Hampshire.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's contract zoning in Maine, but Mainers are crazy. and so that's why we don't do that here. But
I've got a lot of family in Maine. I can't argue with that.
I don't think I've done a lot of meetings with you, Christian.
Yes.
You have never
Over the last 35
you have never
years.
looked away from me and used the phrase contract zoning. And I'm glad that you weren't looking at me because I was firing evil eyes at you. So while I don't deny that we could as a town consider another way to zone property, we would have to do it in a way that actually created districts, didn't involve just one lot, and didn't subject us to somebody, especially someone who didn't like the project, bringing us to the Supreme Court on spot zoning. So I just want
understood. It was just an idea.
I just want to make that really clear, really early.
Nobody can accuse you of not being inventive.
Well, thank you.
I mean, this parcel needs to be redeveloped. It went a long time. Nobody wanted to buy it as a golf course. I think those days are behind us. And so something does need to be done. And housing, everyone knows, is at a real extreme high need time now. So we're going down the right road. You're just going down the right road a lot quicker and a lot more dynamically than I think we're really going to achieve. But
yeah, which is fine, you know, and that's kind of why we wanted to basically sit down with the planning board as a kickoff point to however we move forward with whatever gets done here, and just basically show the board what we would consider probably a maximum, you know, development layout.
And everybody knows that at the state level, all sorts of things are being considered.
Going through the legislature.
So who knows in November what the story will be for us being guided to change our zoning ordinances. It's a completely legitimate possibility, but right now, that's just way too unitized.
Oh, and I absolutely am aware of that. My client is aware of that, and you know, that's why I made that point up front, is we understand.
And Frank, are you committed to condos?
Say again?
Are you committed to condos? Do you want to have it be a condo development?
Well, is this a condo or is this more like a PUD?
Well, the ownership would be condo.
Okay.
Certainly looks a lot like a planned unit development, though. Madam Chair, I totally agree with you. But that, yeah, the ownership under this type of a scenario, I believe, without question, certainly without some vast, you know, changes to the zoning ordinance, really the only way to get, you know, any sort of density that even modestly resembles this.
So when Glenn and I looked this over a few days ago, discussing the density and that sort of thing, one of the things that Glenn raised was that part of this is in the aquifer protection.
Correct.
Part of it is not.
Correct.
You'll do better on density if you take your duplexes out of aquifer and put them into the non.
Right, I did take note of that in Glenn's review memo, and point well made and point well made.
Is this just in Kingston and not in Kingston and East Kingston?
Oh, no, there's an East Kingston element, right?
There is an East Kingston element.
Because we have a road that goes to East Kingston.
There is, okay.
See where the road goes, it starts in Kingston and it.
We have a little spur road.
Yeah, so electric,
Not
you
shown
can
on that
see
one.
that little,
That single line going out?
that goes out, yeah, the little almost square that's off to the right on the plan view.
Yep.
That is the rest of the golf course which resides in East Kingston.
Okay.
What we've done is done a design to come talk to you folks about that is exclusively within the town boundaries of Kingston.
In East Kingston, I think you're planning on being over 55? No?
I don't think that is an opportunity anymore in East Kingston. I believe that they have maxed out their over 55 housing stock, and they're not taking any applications for age-restricted housing.
So the good news is, you've got the density in one area, and then you've got lots of open space around it.
Correct.
So, like we do with most of our communities like this. So it's leaving a lot of open space.
Do you know where Powell River flows through there?
Not exactly, Peter, but I think it is to our southwest.
It comes across Powell, the Powell Road, and looks like it flows up. I was looking on Access GIS. It looks like it flows up into the property, but I can't.
The large wetland, Mr. Coffin, in the southwesterly portion of that lot could be the large wetland that is the headwaters of that. But
Okay, well, it comes out of Country Pond and then flows.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Powell River flows north out of Country Pond and then turns and flows east, East Kingston, so. But I just was wondering, because I don't see anything on there that.
That
was
wasn't
on
something that the wetland scientists picked up on when they
Yeah,
did it. We, Frank literally just had the wetlands redelineated a couple of months ago. So that is well within the 5-year, applicability of the wetland delineation. But obviously, should we choose to move forward, Peter, we would absolutely be ferreting out all of that information.
Right.
Because obviously any project that gets done here is going to trigger an alteration of terrain permit. Under this layout, we have avoided any wetland impacts. Obviously, shoreline impacts are non-existent, but alteration of terrain would certainly be part and parcel of any development, and any development that we could contemplate here in question.
And if we use this layout, Christian, our regulations require that at the end of that cul-de-sac, there be a dedicated connection if an abutting property is developable.
Yep.
And although the town owns what directly abuts the top third of the property.
Right, yes.
There is a parcel of like 15 acres that I think the cul-de-sac actually sort of leans down into.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
these are the kind of
that would
things
have to be shown.
that we're here to ferret out, I mean, we did leave a small stub that could, and a paper street that could potentially go out to the East Kingston side of the golf course itself. But that very, very easy to build that into the design. And again, that area is high and dry as far as wetland goes, so there would be no issue with any sort of wetland crossing that would be required to get that done either.
So probably, we need to wait and see what happens at the State House.
Start with that. I mean, yeah, and we're well aware. I mean, in the immediate term, we would have to go to the zoning board, figure out exactly what and how many variances would be required to do something along these lines. And yeah, that would be the next step if we wanted to try and.
But the CBA doesn't create zoning districts, so that might be very tough road there. I noticed that one of the proposed state rules that was going to be acted on, the effective date was July 1st of 2026, and whereas if anything that went through the town for proposed changes, and this year that would go into next March's voting, would be go into effect immediately after the voting day in March. So if it passed, so yeah, I'd look at all the options, but
So, I mean, one of the zoning changes they're contemplating is, as you know, half-acre lots on something on community water and sewer.
Right, yeah.
So that would change the density of any project we'd have like this if that passed.
Well, provided it was public waters.
Public water and sewer, which we don't
Yeah,
have.
well, community water and sewer you'd be providing.
Oh, that would work as well?
I don't think the ordinance, it has to be a
I thought it was like a municipal.
municipal, it says in the
Does it
rules,
say
yeah.
municipal?
Yeah, I think it says.
Either municipal or
I don't know, I
public.
saw so many versions of the bill before it went forward.
Even if you're not on the water or sewer, that the mandatory top lot size can be 2 acres.
Right.
Which would mean the aquifer requirement of 3 acres would no longer apply to you.
Got it, yeah.
And it would be 2 acres across the site.
Frank had one of the principals that went for a long time ago.
I haven't seen him in a very long time.
I've been trying to avoid you.
Okay.
No, we've tested the East Kingston side, which is the aquifer, there's no aquifer soils at all. So we have not tested it on the Kingston side, but it didn't hold true. There was not one bit of aquifer soils at all on the East Kingston side. So usually when you're doing soil mapping, you can figure out what it actually is. I am not sure if the Kingston side has aquifer soils, but there are none on the East Kingston side, and it's shown as being completely in the aquifer.
Interesting.
So these are just, they're silty. Remember the types of soils that you see tested?
I don't remember, a couple of months ago, but, yeah, well, aside from that little, the round, the aquifer, protection zone in East Kingston is that little area that looks like a finger sticking in there.
Yep.
The finger is actually out, right, and the rest of it is in, which is interesting because that heads down to the big wetland, and wetlands are not aquifers.
Right, and we expected to find sands and gravels there, and there was none of that at all. What we're trying to do is figure out how to create more affordable housing. We do not want, I've done plenty of over 55 subdivisions, and I'm not looking to do another one. I kind of think the state has maxed that out. And so we're trying to find a way to do density with not having age restricted. So this layout isn't age restricted yet, has plenty of houses, and I know it's a little scary to look at it on a map, but if this was an over 55, you would just be refining it with this here. And we're trying to figure out how do we build small colonials and capes with one-car garages, but have density so they're actually affordable to build. When you start laying this out as a 20-unit standard subdivision, the lot costs are $250,000 a piece. You're already approaching. You can't build a house and be affordable if you rented the lots for $250,000 a piece. And we looked at this and said, how do we accomplish that? And we said, okay, let's just come in with a concept. We know none of this is binding. We're just trying to get the feel on it and to see if this is something you'd be interested in. We figured we could do some affordable housing. We could do a park in there. We could put open space in there and have this as something that would actually have some density. We could afford to build houses that are affordable instead of putting 900 to 1.2 million houses in here. That really, people can't buy starter homes anymore. Those days are gone. And it changed, as you know, it changed fast. From 2019 to today, it was fairly affordable housing to unaffordable. And we're trying to figure out how to do that. And we thought, we'd come in front of you and see if this is something you guys would be interested in.
Any comments from the board?
I love it. I mean, this is, if you want affordable housing, this is how it is. When any place you go, you see this, it's affordable. It's the only way to do it now. And I wish we could get there without the state, to be honest with you, the zoning, because that, you want to build a $1.2 million colonial, great, but you want to build little starter homes for people that can afford them. Density is the key to it. And water and sewer, you know what I mean? I'm not a fan, but if you can put that in with well and septic and make that work, I like it a lot. That's where I'm at with it. I mean, because it's the 55-year-old, but you're right, I think there are too many. And there are a lot of families that I see every single day that just need something to get into at $500,000 or $600,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, this started to be realized by, true demographers. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Peter Francis.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, back in 2012 through 2015, he he was talking about the fact that, you know, the escalation in the, number one, cost of housing, you know, number two, the tax rates, and all those things lumped together. You know, he said all our working age people are headed to the mid-Atlantic coast or further south because land was so reasonable down there, and purchasing homes was a lot more financially feasible. I don't know if that's still the case as far as what the pricing is down there, but you know, I think it's projects like this. It doesn't have to be 66 houses. You know, I mean, it's going to be whatever it winds up being based on reality. But that's how you get there. That's how you make a house that you could potentially sell for $300,000 or $400,000 instead of $8 or $9 or $1 million.
And if you think we don't need this, a house in Kingston went on the market a month ago. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranch with I think a 1 or 2 car garage attached. Put on the market at $495. They had 75 showings over 2.5 days. They had 24 offers, all over asking, all excellent. Only one could be accepted. One was accepted. 23 other deserving people that would have been wonderful members of the community lost out.
Wow.
And when that's just one example of what's happening with anything in that kind of a price range. And obviously, it's closing at substantially more than that because everybody bid it up and probably more than its value.
Right.
But that's what's happening. And when you see on a day-to-day basis all these people getting turned away that are so deserving and qualified and ready to buy and ready to start their families or ready to downsize and allow their home to go to someone that's ready to step up. It's an interesting experience.
Well, and that, Madam Chair, that's not a unique story.
I know.
You know, my eldest daughter, who will be 31 in September, they hunted for 2 years, and that's exactly what they were running into. They had financing up to a certain amount, and every time they would get into a bidding war, and they had a roof. You know, they couldn't go above that. You know, after 2 years, they found a lovely little house on North Road in Brentwood, which is where they live now. But yeah, it's a real need. I agree with board members on that.
Yeah.
We just need to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So shouldn't we be building houses for seniors so that we could downsize? I mean.
Well,
that's what this would be.
Facilitate that as well.
Seniors
This would
people in there.
facilitate that as well.
So seniors can live in any house in town. Anyone 55 and older can buy any house in town of Kingston.
Right.
But if you lay out a subdivision that's only over 55, the only people who can live there are over 55. It's been a great market for guys like me because the baby boomers have been retiring and there's been a huge market for it, but it's starting to slow down. And what happens when you don't have that many people retiring anymore?
There's a lot of us boomers still in our houses.
No, I know, and it's great.
Yes,
I would say most people who buy from you sell their house and they downsize and they're paying cash. 70% of the people who buy from you are paying cash because they're selling their house for so much more than what they're buying. But at the same time, any of these over 55 subdivisions, only 55 people can live. And that's really where the problem is. And they're usually less money because they're 1,400 to 1,700 square feet.
It's smaller.
But that doesn't help the people who are looking for a house, you know, the 31-year-olds and the 26-year-olds who can't afford it. And there's a real need for it. And I've done plenty of them. I'm just finishing up a 100-unit over 55 in Epic right now. And it was great. It sold fantastic, and it's in the the 650 to 800 range. But even at that price,
it's still a lot.
Kids can't afford it.
Those numbers, in what I see, because I'm there when you sell it, I'm there when you buy it. You're selling your house that you worked your whole life for, to drop every penny you have onto that. You start building, I've always had the dream of a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, Cape, 1,800 square feet, please sell them for $400,000.
And that's
And
literally
you know
what we talked about today.
Campanelli did, and they did a wonderful job way back when, in the 50s and the 60s. And they built them so you buy it and you can go up with it if you want to. Right. You know what I mean? And that's your option, but it's affordable. And like you mentioned, it's lot cost. I mean, I hope New Hampshire stays away from what Massachusetts is doing with, gotta wire for this, gotta do for that, gotta do, I mean, permitting down there is $15,000 just to build a building permit, you know what I mean? Add that on to your solar and mandated HERS report and all the rest of it, and you're at $100,000 just.
That's just
dumb
stuff.
Yeah. So.
And this one is based off of the old one, the 55, where there's a 60-foot separation. I think you guys have changed it to 40 now. We wouldn't be looking to put them any closer than they are now, so I know it's a shock to see this. And this many houses in this location, but at the same time, I don't know how to create something affordable without density. I just don't know how to do it.
Well, the other thing is there are people that are older than 55 that don't necessarily want to be in an over 55. They want the teenager down the street that can come and shovel their walk.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And that isn't always possible, so. Well, I think we've had some comment from the board. Shall we open it for public comment?
Sure. Well, the only other comment I would make, are the houses gonna look all alike? Are we gonna have Stepford houses in there?
Oh, no, it's not gonna be little boxes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna be individual houses. Like Frank said, probably some colonial styles, probably some Cape styles.
I grew up in a house.
Some ranches.
4 of us kids in a 1,600 square foot.
I know.
Colonial with a one-car garage. Yeah. And you know what? I thought it was a big house growing up. I think people are so used to building these 26 to 4,000 square foot houses, and you don't need a house that big to raise kids. And if you're starting and you're just having kids, you don't need to pay $1.2 million for a house. It's nice to have a place where they can step. And then if they want to step up after that, that's something they can do.
But get them started.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to open this to public comment. Do we have any comment from the public?
So are you proposing to make this?
Excuse me? You can't just talk. You actually have to come up to the microphone, give us your name and your address, and then talk so that not only can we hear you, but also the people at home can hear us, because we're on YouTube.
I'm Yvette Chasen, and I live at 60 Depot Road, which is right across the street. 62 and 60 I own, but my question is this going to be a 55 and over?
That's not what we would want to do.
Okay, so anybody will be able to buy? Oh, great, okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, we will close public comment.
Just so you know, I expected like 60 people here mad.
I think her comment sums up what a lot of people feel. I mean, growth is good. You just gotta manage it, and that density I think is the key to getting to. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but you want houses, they gotta be built cheap.
I don't want us to look like the strip on Route 1 heading into Portsmouth, where every square inch has 42 apartments in one little ball. Awful.
That's not Kingston.
That's not Kingston, exactly correct. But
I think you're gonna see a lot of those apartments turn into condos really quick. The world has changed.
I could stay up there, but I'd like to see some different sized houses.
Right.
That would be really nice.
And it would be Kingston doing its part for affordable housing. And affordable meaning workforce, not necessarily meaning Section 8. Yeah.
We would plan on doing workforce housing. We're hoping on 10%.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to build a park, something, basketball courts or something like that, where kids could go, stay in the neighborhood. Yeah. And there's the way that it lays out, the elements mostly at the top. It would be great to put the bottom half into conservation.
Yeah.
There's plenty of trails out there. There's little bridges made because it was a golf course.
I bet you can cut a deal in that gym up there on Main Street. I'm not kidding, and I'm not trying to be fresh about it, but I think when they get going there, that gym will need to go.
Stop it.
I'm helping you.
So I guess one pointed question that we'd just like to hear the opinion of the board. We understand it's a straw poll. We understand that nothing you say is binding at this meeting today, but just, is there a consensus of this board if we went to try and get a variance to utilize the 55 plus zoning without the age restriction? Do you folks, would you be in support of that?
I would. Absolutely, absolutely positive.
I know you don't get a vote.
I don't get a vote because I live in a different community. I would tell you no, Christian.
Okay, this is what we want to hear.
But everything you're saying is true. And towns have to find a way.
Right.
They have to find a way.
Chris?
I think it's a pretty good plan. Yeah, I'll be sure.
Yeah, I'd support it as well, but I'd like to have like 2 or 3 pieces of property in town that could resemble that, so that it would not be spot zoning, but gave us the opportunity to have 2 or 3 other pieces of property that were similar size, with a similar type of configuration, so you could have a cape, a ranch, a colonial house, in some variance in pricing, but more affordable than, you know, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 homes that we have most of the time.
One more question, sorry.
That's all right, no.
On the East Kingston side, is something similar going to be there as well?
So we don't really know yet.
Yeah, we don't know.
Okay.
East Kingston, we originally thought we might go in as an over 55, but they're at their max. I think they allow 15%, they're at around 16%, so that's not going to be that as a conventional subdivision. It was like 7 to 9 house lots, I think we laid it out. But we wanted to come in here first. Our access is out of Kingston, and we wanted to see how you felt here as a board before we went to East Kingston.
Okay. I'm good.
Got what you need?
So you would prefer that we would try this, but go to the zoning board to so we kind of saw it as a couple of different ways that we could do it. Come in back with the plan, go in front of the zoning board. And honestly, I'm not even sure if that works, because we've never really tried something like this before.
I don't know either. I mean, I've always been supportive of over 55 zoning for all ages, because I feel over 55 zoning is discriminative. So you know, if you could take the over 55, if we as a town could put forth an ordinance to take over 55 zoning and make it available for all age groups in town.
In certain locations. Or are you thinking municipality-wide?
Sounds like she's thinking municipal-wide.
I'm thinking municipal-wide, because there's not a lot of raw land available.
Right.
So I'm not sure where else you could go.
Right.
But as we, you know, as you begin to look at it, I think it's the only way we're going to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish and have a look and feel of what we want our town to. It's, as Rob says, it's planned growth. You're going to have growth. You plan it to make it what would be suitable for your individual community. And you know, whether the planning board looks at changing our zoning ordinance to maybe mimic something like that, and that'd be something for the planning board to discuss as we begin going toward planning board season. But it also means we got to find out what's going to happen by June. By June 30th.
Is that when the legislature's supposed to vote?
Yes. Everything, they've had crossover.
Yep.
So the House bills are in the Senate, the Senate bills are in the House, and now they're having hearings on them. They had a massive hearing today with a lot of pushback against affordable housing. The Municipal Association is against it, but just about all the business community, just about everybody else is for it, and it's all going to depend on, they're making sausage up there, and they're going to take what first came forward, and they're going to add this and take that out, and it's all going to depend on what happens, and it'll be voted on sometime between now and probably the middle of June.
Okay.
I would, usually the last 2 weeks of June are for committees of conference, so when the House votes on a bill and the Senate changes it, they have to go to a committee of conference, go back and negotiate, and go back and have it accepted by both sides. So probably everything will be voted on by the end of May, they'll go into committees of conference, and then they'll figure it all out. But yeah, so that's kind of where we don't know what's gonna happen until the end of June.
Right.
So my suggestion would be, don't spend an awful lot of money between now
Until
and
then.
July 1st, because things may change.
Yeah.
And we really don't know how they're gonna change.
Right, understood.
Yeah, and from my point of view, I'm not going to comment on whether you should go to the ZBA or not. I just agree with Lynn on this is a bigger picture in how we deal with this need for increased housing and especially more affordable housing is something we've done before in terms of changing our zoning ordinances, for example, up in a commercial zone, we changed the coverage area, allowed, impervious coverage area based on the ability of the land underneath to take it in. And I think that would be something that we would work around on our density requirements, would be maybe analyzing what is actually required in order to have individual septic systems and things like that, as opposed to just saying, okay, it's got to be 3 acres or whatever. So, but that's all something that the ZBA doesn't do. It's something the planning board does in terms of big picture, like in our master plan, how to change our ordinances. And I know Brentwood's in the process of doing that right now. I know that Kingston's going to be having to look at that. And even before they change the laws, we're going to have to start looking at it. But quite frankly, we're not going to do it until we find out what the state's going to say.
And Kingston's rewriting its master plan.
Yeah.
That's in this year and next year we'll be doing that, so that's.
But we know there's a need for housing, and we know there's other ways of determining density based on science. And so that I'm in favor of that kind of planning.
Great.
And so it's not going to happen overnight.
All understood, and we knew that walking in here.
Okay.
By all means.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right, thank you all.
See you,
Your
Frank.
input's been fantastic. Appreciate your time.
Okay, next board business. You all want to flip over your agenda? We have election of officers.
Just quick note, did Robin give you an indication that she's willing to continue on? Okay, good. So can we make motions then? And can we do this together?
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Wait.
Okay, yeah.
Four hearings in 2 hours. We had 2 4 times.
Both sides of the people
When you had me on this board. I still like hearing new stuff. I really do.
I do too. This to me, if I had understood in high school, I could have done something like this, I would have.
So we voting Robin in for everything?
Yeah. That's the deal. Is that a motion?
We have a second.
Second. He did already.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are. It's a slate. It's a slate.
It's a slate, right?
It's a slate. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
That'll teach you what it was.
She was very apologetic.
I'm sure.
So we also have to do some appointments, and we can do those.
Historical too. No, I'm kidding.
We have to do somebody for historic district.
I'm fine there.
Okay.
Okay.
Nobody else wants it.
Anybody else want to be on historic? Okay, we'll keep Rob on historic district. We have to do somebody to, we have to do
CIP.
two to CIP, right?
Yeah, and is Robin willing to stay on that?
And we're gonna try to do it earlier.
Yes.
We're gonna do it earlier. My feeling is we need to get everything in from all the departments by the end of June. Because this stuff is getting way too late.
They're gonna bitch and moan, but it's just a swag anyway.
Oh, yeah, we reminded them, but, when you're 6 to 8 weeks late getting stuff into us, everything got into the budget committee.
Everything was
way too late.
From everybody last year.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
So it just, we need to start earlier.
It didn't matter. Everyone was late.
So we need 2 people for CIP. We can put Robin as one. Anyone else want to volunteer?
I'll stay on there if we don't have anybody else who wants to try it.
Anybody else we need to put in? think so. I don't think so. If we do, we'll do it at the next meeting. Oh, the Transportation Advisory Council.
Do we have to do that?
No, that's not up for yet, but,
No, it's not up yet.
yeah, it's,
Still a long way, years away from Transportation Council.
Yeah. Well,
no, this is Rockingham Planning Commission's TAC. It's
and then the,
10-year plans.
Robin was the delegate to the Rockingham Planning Commission. We'll keep her on that.
Right.
Okay, there we go. Continuing on, do we have a motion to accept the minutes of March 18th?
So moved.
Second?
Second here.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll abstain because I wasn't there. Okay. Then we have some correspondence. The first is the bond release for Joe Wilson related to map R19-30 and 31, which has since changed ownership. So it's now owned by Lewis Builders Centerview Land Company. If we release Joey's bond, do we have to get a bond from Lewis?
Yeah, definitely, yes.
We have a bond? Okay, I'm just asking. Okay, so if we,
Remember they had to split it? They had to split the bond?
Yeah.
okay, so the bond is in.
Lewis is taking
There's an
up,
explanation there.
he's taking up the half that used to be Joe Wilson.
Yeah,
Yes,
Centerview has.
they
Yeah.
already took it up,
Yeah.
and then Joey's just never requested it.
We just need to release Joe's not there.
I mean, we would need to have Paula check everything, verify everything first.
yes. Oh, yeah,
For sure.
for sure. So,
I'll
Lewis
ask
Builders
that,
has posted a separate bond. Okay, so we need to verify that they have their bond in, it's in place, and we need to verify that,
I'll ask that we direct our land use administrator to follow up on that with the finance director to see exactly what is available before a check is issued.
and a motion in favor of issuing the check if it's,
Oh, it's not, is up to date, right?
okay. Second? All those in favor?
Right.
Let's go that one. The next one. Okay. Let's skip ahead. D, it's the invoice from Compost Environmental for the hydrogeologic study review for the major Sanborn Seminary project.
Okay, and Glenn said that came in within the...
$2,250. We have the money to pay it, so,
So moved.
we'll pay that.
You're just gonna do a consensus to okay, or do a motion?
Consensus,
Consensus.
yeah.
Okay.
And just has to say anybody objecting, and nothing heard, we're out.
Okay, so we took care of that one. And we do have to deal with Dennis Quintel, but we do have an invoice from construction. Civil Construction Management. It's for $935 for professional services for the Sanborn subdivision.
That's, I think, yeah, that's good. We probably ought to discuss the report too.
Just think we've got the easy stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
And this one I have to sign as, I'll sign it once I've checked it. Just call me up. Okay. All right. So we have to deal with B, C, and E, all of which then require some discussion.
Okay, well, I also have an item from the select board regarding Toro Mayo that we need to chat about. a little
Okay,
bit,
we'll talk about that as well then.
Okay.
Okay, so so the alteration of terrain amendment request and revised plans for the proposed CJ&J leasing company at 83 Route 125. The ledge was found, so requesting to amend the drainage plan. So if they want to amend the drainage plan, I think that probably needs to go back to Dennis, doesn't it?
It does, yep.
That's what we've done.
Oh, you've done that?
Yeah.
It's been forwarded to him.
Okay.
But we haven't heard back.
And the village should make a motion saying that his reply is that he's fine with the change that they made, that we should allow Lynn to sign the form that DPS wants.
So moved?
So moved, yeah.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
So he has material to look at that.
And I'm looking at that revised plan, and it appears to be the ledge is here in the West Shore Park Road corner. But there's also a subsurface refiltration gallery that looks like that's part of the change, the dashed line around and the hatched area. And I'm not sure what that's about. I guess
That's why we're gonna have
Dennis looks at it and can understand what this is.
to make sure that it doesn't have a negative impact
On Little River and yeah.
Okay. So the next is an alteration of email from Cindy Terrio, Lukacs, and Barton, dated 4/10/25 on behalf of CJ&J, same company, reference to due diligence on 25 Route 125, which is R3-2-B, and they have a copy of that in here. So that land is just north of the old stove shop on 125, and it extends 125 and a little bit down Colonial Way, and then it goes back all the way to Hillside.
Fairly steep slope off that side of Hillside.
And in the middle of this is all wet.
Yeah, that line.
The majority of the lot's wet, as you look at it. So what the letter said was the use was to do a paven area for overflow storage of their empty refrigerated storage units. They'd be on site for 8 to 9 months of the year, so they want to buy this land and use it for storage. They want to know if they could use Hillside Road to access the eastern portion of the property to avoid a wetland crossing.
They haven't finished construction of what they're doing now, right?
Correct.
Right, they obviously have more trailers than they have room for on the lot. In fact,
So they're trying to find property, but man.
that's
Taking those
not
tractor
something.
trailer hooks through a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, that is not, that's not going to fly with the people on Hillside.
No, I would think not.
They'll all be here. If Hillside, Pillsbury, Newton Junction Road, no way, no way.
Okay.
Yeah, and that access area, that is all single-family residential, right? Because Hillside Drive is all,
Correct.
and so they would.
That's why it's called Hillside Drive, right?
Drive is because on a hill and because it's residential and it's a drive, yes. But again, I think that in desperation, they're discovering why that property is still available, and that's because it's not really usable for almost anything, including paving over.
The third question.
Yeah, well, the second
Because
one,
I think we have to tell them that they can't use Hillside Drive
No.
for commercial activity.
Right.
correct.
There can't be any question about that.
No, that's easy enough, yeah.
So they want to know if they could maybe subdivide the land and put a resident on Hillside and the rest.
No, I think what they need to do is talk to some of their commercial neighbors and see if they can lease space from one of their abutting neighbors.
Well, no, they can't do that because they looked at a property
Yeah,
that was across the street, but that would constitute the same use of a property within 1,000 feet of their business.
so tell them to go 1,500 feet.
Well, that's what they're trying to do is.
Well,
find something
Hillside won't work.
I agree.
Hillside won't work.
But would you agree to them subdividing the property and put a house on Hillside and commercial on 125? I think that's what question
That's what
3 is
question three
asking.
is.
I'd say
I don't
no.
have a problem. How can we have a problem with that?
I don't think we could have a problem with that.
The issue is the whole parcel is zoned commercial.
Right.
Right.
So
And so if it was
they did that, they
They'd have to
do a
rezone.
citizens petition
To
to
rezone, the way we did with,
the way we did
just recently.
the property next to Comac Bunker
Correct.
Well.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we can't subdivide a commercial property for residential use.
Gotcha.
Even though in this case, the residential use would be better on Hillside.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
I mean, but it would require a rezoning. That's all. They need to know that answer. I think as soon as we tell them they can't use Hillside for commercial, they're just gonna see that this is too limited.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the Dimitri brothers very well, but I don't think they're gonna be into waiting 9 more months for another town meeting to see if they can get property rezoned, so that they can sell it as residential.
Especially after the reaction to people not realizing what they were voting on last time, and not being horrified at what's happening.
But I think that is a potential for them. They just need to know that it would require a rezoning.
So,
That definitely darkens the waters for them.
okay. And then number 2 was setbacks for any other improvements, which does say 15 feet from the front, but
But 125 has its own setback requirements.
on the 100 feet, so that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And I think that probably they didn't see that 125 setback requirement, and that just, Glenn could just point them to that
Yeah, so I
paragraph.
will get back to her on Thursday.
So that's taken care of. Okay, so Dennis? So we have a bit of an issue when it comes to 6 Granite, or is it 6 or is it 8? 6 Granite Road. Okay. So we required a performance bond, and it was never taken out. And we've determined how it fell through the cracks, and they're in the process of determining how not to let that happen again. They were supposed to go to Paula and get stuff, and just nothing got done, and unfortunately, the plan got signed and recorded before the bond. Before meeting the condition of the bond. So.
I would suggest talking with Paula and ask her for a procedure to make sure that doesn't happen again. Does she need to provide a form for you to fill out to get to her? Do you know what I'm saying? That we need something in place so that she could automatically.
She needs to know that that's coming, but
That's
we
correct.
also have to know before we move forward that they've actually got it from Paula, so it's a matter of.
Right.
That was the problem.
Yeah, because
we thought it had gone through, and it
It's
didn't.
established between the applicant and Dennis.
Right.
Well, Dennis doesn't, it establishes, but Dennis doesn't do any paperwork.
He establishes the amount, and then it goes to Paula.
He has
Yeah.
no involvement.
And usually what we find is that people know how to do it. They're dealing with an engineer that knows to go to Paula. But in this case, the applicant was doing it and got messed.
It got messed up, okay.
So it was something outside of our normal procedure, but we figured it out, and they're working on it.
Okay.
But I talked to Dennis about this today, so he didn't have to come to the meeting and sit through everything to talk about this at the end. And he said that he believes that the performance bond needs to be there. In this case, do we require it? Don't we require it? He doesn't think we need to require it now. However, he does feel that this is not necessarily, there are a lot of issues with the project right now, and that before any kind of an occupancy permit is allowed, that he needs to sign off. In fact, he said that for any construction project, before an occupancy permit that requires, stormwater runoff and all this kind of stuff, which is where the issues are with this project, he thinks that he should have, or an engineer or somebody should have to check that stormwater runoff and make certain that all that stuff, the plan was actually done properly before the occupancy permit. So just like we have fire and police.
I would love that to be the case.
He thinks he needs to be part of that.
Because the contractor that we work with for stormwater management, that used to be Verdantis, but is now another name, I think. They want to see that those inspections have taken place.
Yeah.
And if we don't tie it to the occupancy permit, we're not doing them. And the stormwater management group, it pisses them off.
Right, and I bet Pedro would know what form to use, or could develop one for us.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
have it developed.
Oh, okay, then there you go.
I actually spoke with Pedro today about this, because we need to address it,
Yeah.
and we talked about putting checkoffs in the building process.
Yeah.
That puts, it won't allow them to go any further until he checks with the planning board to make sure that is, however we want to do it, that it's been completed. In this case, the occupancy permits have been issued. However, he's put a stop on it, so no business occupancy permits
Right.
are issued.
Okay, all right.
So, but he said he could work that into the program, he's gonna work with the people.
Okay.
Okay, and the applicant knows that they won't be issued a business occupancy permit?
Pedro is gonna get in touch with her.
Okay.
And what we need to do as a board, get back to them on the bond, what the requirement's gonna be. Because they're willing to give something, she just wasn't aware it had to happen.
Yeah,
I
and,
don't think we go down the bond road at all.
No.
wait, why not? Because there's still, I mean, they have to change the grading on that.
For inspection fees.
Yeah. We have the
Oh, I see.
inspection fees and,
Oh, I see, instead of a bond, just a regular like escrow account.
Right, because the bond is to ensure that if they don't build it, we have money to build it. We're not gonna do that, and they've already built it.
Yeah, and,
So now what we need is
although,
some sort of escrow account, so that we can cover Dennis doing this
the inspection and,
before that occupancy permit.
So Dennis
And-
will do
and-
another inspection.
well, yeah,
Dennis
there's
says he
more
needs
than
to do
one.
several more.
Yeah, there's grade changes, there's finished asphalt.
$2,000 escrow.
Well, they do have an escrow account because they came before the board and they haven't requested their escrow to be released.
And how
Oh,
much?
that's good.
So they probably have a pretty good balance.
That's
I
actually
can
good.
check on that.
Yeah. But there's issues on there, like that vertical retaining wall with the entire hill behind it is a doomed.
We have to have that. Or else have to put it in the plan.
Well, Dennis says, why approve a plan if you're not going to enforce it? Right.
Yeah, and the other issue is the pre-construction meeting that never occurred.
Right.
And we need a way to make sure that happens. There's conditions of approval that need to be done. I don't know how the Mylar got signed without.
It should all be part, probably, of Pedro following up with the code enforcement and making sure that the pre-construction, once he knows that we've got a pre-construction meeting, and then.
Well, it's not really his job.
No,
I mean, as a building permit, but not the site.
Well, when the site plan is done. and
then
you
you're
start
down to the building.
building,
Before you start building, you need a
they have permit to do
pre-construction.
the building, they have to have somebody supervising and signing off periodically. Just like Dennis has been going weekly to see J&J.
And I'm surprised that the state wouldn't be involved, especially at the MS4 issues, because I know they're involved in they're supposed to be inspecting weekly on the CJ&J project. That was part of their alteration of terrain permission, was the weekly inspections by the state inspector. So Dennis says he hasn't seen one out there, but he's not there all the time.
We have no control over that.
Yeah, right, that's the state. Whether they do it or not is.
So, are we in consensus that we move forward, that before any kind of occupancy permit is put on anything, everything's been signed off by the town engineer to make certain that the site plan is in compliance?
Yeah. Yes, we are in agreement with that, and also with fixing the problem of why those other things aren't happening, why this was his first visit, why there was no pre-construction meeting. I'm surprised that, since he must go down 125 occasionally, he hadn't noticed that entire building went up and was been constructed for quite a while now.
You talking about Pedro?
No, well, Dennis.
Of Dennis?
Yeah, because he seemed surprised that entire building was constructed and the wall and everything else when he went to his first visit, and there was no meeting. So, I mean, he lives in East Kingston, he may not ever go down 125.
Okay. So, it's in the minutes, we're all set, we can move forward. And Ellen,
And Tormeo, yeah.
Romeo.
We had a lot of visitors at the select board meeting, both this week and last week. And one of the abutters had, the one that's closest to him, to the Toro Mayo property. There's a lot of activity going on, and he's got an intent to cut again or dig in. And the board did not approve it because we believe he's not completed what he was supposed to do a year ago with extra trees that he had taken down. That's what we believe. So the board is doing a site walk on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, and it is posted, and they're meeting at the home of Bob Berg, one of the abutters from on Jericho Drive. Yeah, I don't know what number Jericho he is, but that's where everyone is meeting at 9 o'clock this Friday. I believe Pedro went out this morning to visit the site as well, but we're required to sign that permit, intent to cut within 30 days. If we don't, he just goes ahead and does it. Basically is what happens.
Well, that's all under state jurisdiction, right, not under us?
Yeah, but the state statute's filed, but we have to sign off on it, and if we don't, there are consequences.
To the town?
To the town.
So you're forced to sign off?
You're forced to sign up. I mean, we want him to at least be a decent neighbor and do what he's supposed to do, and that is have some buffers between his property and the neighbors on the other side of Jericho Drive. It's not working out too good.
No.
So I wanted to let you all know about it. We may need some help, or Pedro may need some help from us, because the site plan, it's been a long time, I think, since anyone's seen the site plan there.
Yeah, no, they've always been exempt, so we've never done.
Well,
we have done on some of the factory chimney, and there's a couple of things that we did on that property that.
We did do
in
something
the pile.
recently.
Yeah, it was, it
For,
was the coverage of the shed.
But he never put up the trees on the edge of that.
Yeah, no, that whole part is,
That's all.
but, and we still have nothing going on with the.
the violations on that.
They still have to uphold the laws. They have to, they got a building permit in 1975, and it says, this permit is issued with the provision that the proposed lot and building shall meet the restrictions set by the ordinances of the town of Kingston in effect at the date of issue, and any variances from these requirements shall automatically void this permit. And this is dated January 22nd, 1975. This permit does not become valid until it's recorded in the name of the owner listed above. And so it's, I'm not sure what we're supposed to do as a planning board, but clearly there are things going on there that are not up to.
There's a lot of things going on there.
Yeah, but we get neighbors on Jericho that we need to.
Yeah, but this has been a problem with the neighbors on Jericho since they built Jericho. I mean, they've been complaining about the blasting and everything, and
The blasting has gotten better because now at least they notify them.
Yeah.
They notify us, we have it on the website, we post it on Facebook, so that has gotten better. So it's not like it hasn't, but if they can't just keep digging out dirt and not putting any buffers up, I guess that's the bottom line. That is the bottom line. So I'm not sure what we're gonna do.
how much more expansion do they have on the property?
They have quite a bit. It's big. It's big.
They dug out, how much?
I don't know.
20%
I
and a half?
don't understand this kind of stuff, so I can't look at that map and tell you what they've got left. It looks like they have a lot left. That's what it looks like.
And this Saturday, who's going out to work it?
Select board is definitely going, or most of it's, not all of us, but most of it are going out. And they're meeting at Mr. Berg's property on Jericho. I just don't know the number. There is a posting downstairs or on the
Look it up on
website.
Access, yes.
So, you should see it, but the only way you're gonna know what's going on is if you go look at this.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
But that sidewalk is just at Mr. Berg's, so it's only gonna be,
It's
it's
only
not
They're
on,
meeting there and then going on to Torremere.
oh, they are going, so it's with
They're meeting at
concurrence.
Mr. Berg's and going on the Torremere property.
Okay.
And Tormeo's where?
Yes.
Because otherwise it's trespass.
Well, unless Susan didn't call them, but she's got it.
No, I'm sure that she does.
That's what I
Sure
think.
that she does.
So-
Oh, actually, I heard Pedro talking to Brenda.
And he had an
last
appointment.
week anyway.
Pedro was there this morning because he had already made an appointment to go over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So,
Do you guys have a wheel, a distance wheel?
I have no clue.
I do.
So because
I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I do.
dropped that off on Thursday. You should have something that you can
I would bring it in if I was.
walk out because showing us that tape measure.
No, it's sticking out. I wonder how I
Yeah,
push that.
I know.
I mean,
But
that
they
was,
sent
that
us
was
a-
giving me no information at all.
One of the abutters had sent the board a video of them measuring, that was the Taglieri property, from their back door to the property line, and it was clearly that you could hear everything that was going on the other side of that burn, or whatever it is that's blocking it. I mean, they get a problem.
They do have a problem.
I feel really bad for them. I don't know what we can do, but if we can at least get Torremeo to
Follow the rules.
follow the rules, I think that would go a long way in.
And the state says he has to be how far away?
I don't know,
For
50 feet, I think.
50, it's 50 feet, I think, for an approving a butter. It might be 100 feet for a disapproving a butter.
I don't know what the difference is.
But this
Besides
is
the
still,
50
this
feet.
is still 155E, and 155E, if you were a permanent place before 1979, you're exempt, so I don't know why, I'm not understanding
He
that.
still has to follow some ordinances. And if we have buffers as part of our ordinance, he cut down trees the last time. That was the biggest problem.
Yeah, and
Because then you could hear everything.
We dropped our excavation ordinance 8 years ago or so, and just took 155E as our ordinance.
Right, but for permission to cut is, we require a 50-foot buffer for commercial operations adjacent to residential zones. And that would mean leaving the trees up within 50 feet. So cutting trees down within 50 feet of a residential buffer would be against the ordinance because cutting trees down isn't controlled by the Mining Act. You know, Department of Mines and whatever. This is just cutting down trees. So now how close you can get with explosives, you know, obviously 50 foot, if you're not going to blow up stuff that's, it's part of your buffer.
The way the present law reads, it's no excavation shall be permitted within 50 feet of the boundary of a disapproving abutter, so it's only 50 feet, within 150 feet of any dwelling which either existed or for which a building permit has been issued at the time the excavation is commenced.
Oh.
Well, Tormeo is going to say that the excavation commenced in 1975. And he's going to say this building didn't exist in 1975. So all he has to meet is that 50 feet to a disapproving abutter. And even from the picture they showed with their tape measure out there, the tape measure said it ended at 27.6 inches, which means 13.6 inches, 13 feet 6 inches was all that was required to get to that, no, 6 was all that was required to get that extra 50, to get to 50 feet. And it looked like it was much more than that to me. That's why I think someone should take a wheel out there and make sure what they're looking at.
Bring it in and
I'll bring it on Thursday.
I don't know which board members are going, to be honest with you.
I'll just leave it in the, I'll tell Susan it's next to my desk and she can just take it if she wants
Because
to.
I know Glenn Copeland is, and a couple of the guys.
So this ordinance says the owner of an excavation which lawfully existed as of August 24th, 1979, from which earth material of sufficient weight or volume to be commercially useful has been removed during the 2-year period before August 24th, 1979, may continue such existing excavation on the excavation site without a permit, subject to the following. So maybe the thing to do is to write a bill. Take it to the legislature.
The legislature has messed around with this regulation for years.
Okay. And they haven't touched the year.
They're not gonna touch us with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, probably.
Or 50-foot, well,
Or a 50-foot pole, more precisely.
And such an excavation site shall be exempt from the provisions of local zoning or similar ordinances. So, there you go. So we have no
That's
control.
why we've always,
Yeah.
why we've always said we didn't have any authority on it.
No control.
And their first permit, according to Selectmen records, is 1975. That's before,
So there's
as
nothing.
best I can see it, that's before 1979.
I was just hoping to change it to 1969.
That's Woodstock generation.
I know.
Different ballgame.
Okay, any other business to come before the meeting?
One last thing.
Okay.
You and I talked about how to apply the duplex concept in Aquifer. Because just outside of Aquifer, a duplex doesn't require an increase to the minimum lot size for a building lot. So you can either do a single family structure on a building lot outside of the Aquifer or a duplex. But in the Aquifer zone, the language says every unit requires 3 acres. Which means if you're gonna do a duplex, which is what we told them tonight, it has to be 6 acres in size. Which to me is ridiculous, but that is what the ordinance says. So I think we have to stick with that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we should consider that if in our standard town lots, you can do a duplex on a lot of 2 acres, why can't you do a duplex on a lot of 3 acres? But that would require a zoning change.
Well, we can put on our list for zoning changes, and while we're thinking of that, it's time to get hiring a company to do the master plan. So I'm wondering, Glenn, can you provide some sort of a RFP that we can present to the selectmen?
I can see if I can find one, yeah.
Something that somebody else has used or something?
And Paul is good at those things too. The RFPs and RFQs.
I'll talk with her.
Yeah, she may know good resources for it.
Yeah, so if we can find somebody we need to get going on that, maybe we can have something by our meeting in April, because we've got 3 weeks before our next meeting, because it's a 5 Tuesday month. So that maybe that'll give enough time to at least get something in front of us.
Yeehaw.
I don't know, I thought we did very well tonight, and move things right along, and it worked out good.
Trying to move it along, but make sure everybody gets a chance to say what they want to say.
They did, I don't think anyone felt neglected at all. That library proposal is something that was very impressed.
All right,
Very
so,
impressive.
motion to adjourn?
You don't need a
We don't need
motion.
it. Meeting is adjourned.